Good afternoon, everyone. This is a review for week 6 of our Play of the Hand class. This week we covered watching out for entries and watching out for your opponents. A lot of watching out to do this week. Next week we'll cover the last two chapters, chapters 7 and 8, and then the final week of our class will just play hands for the entire day and answer any lingering questions that you guys have. Before we go any further, though, into the material for this week, I want to hang on. I want to refer to our Making a Plan handout, which we got the first week of class. And I told you then, and I'll tell you again now, if you don't get anything else from this class, but making a plan, stop and making a plan at the beginning of before you play the first card, you'll be way ahead of the game on Play of the Hands. You'll make your contracts much more often than you do. And when you don't make the contract, at least you'll be able to know why you didn't make it, because a finesse was off or because you got a bad split. You know, right now, when you don't make a contract, you think you did something wrong. Well, maybe you didn't. And if you make a plan in advance of what you expect to happen and what you hope will happen, then when something goes wrong, you'll know what went wrong. So let's go back and just take a look at this. The first part of this is assess the situation. Assess the situation. Look at how many tricks you need to get and how many tricks you can count. Now, we count them different ways depending on if it's no trump or if it's a suit contract. For no trump, we look at the winners. For a suit contract, we look at the losers to see how many losers we have and figure out how to get rid of some of those. The difference between those two, your goal and what you can see you're going to get, is the extra tricks that you need to develop. And usually that's one or two, although it may be more. Once you know how many you need, then you browse the checklist. You look at the list of ways that you can get extra tricks and decide which would be better for you to try. You can do finessing, promotion, length, and trumping and dummy. Those are the 4 that we have available. And as I pointed out before, those are pretty much the 4 that are available no matter how experienced you are in bridge. Those are the 4 ways that you can develop extra tricks. Now, there's some fancier things that you can do to set the stage for some of these, but at the basic level, these are the ones that you need to be able to use and understand. Okay, then the final thing is consider the order. In consider the order, we have some that we've already talked about: drawing your trumps early, playing the high card from the short side first, and developing any extra tricks you have early. And then the last one is be in the right place at the right time. And that's something that, as we've said all through this class, that's a little bit easier said than done. But the 2 lessons that we're talking about today, chapter 5 and chapter 6, both talk about how to be in the right place at the right time, how to decide where you need to be, how to keep entry so you can get there, how to decide who is dangerous and who you should stay away from. These are the topics that are covered in chapter 5 and chapter 6. So let's start out first with chapter 5, and let's start on page 156 of the course book. Okay, on page 156, it talks about the fact that basically you're looking at putting it all together, putting everything together that you've gotten so far in this class. And the main thing this book is talking about is entries. It's talking about transportation problems. It's talking about having winners in the right place so that you can get to where you need to be. And to get to the right hand, either back to the declarer hand or over to the dummy hand, you need to keep entries. That is, you need to keep high cards or winning cards on that side so you can get to that side. Part of your plan needs to be figuring out how many entries do I need and how many entries do I have. Is there a way I can develop other entries? What do I need to do first? These are all things you need to think about as you're developing the plan. So it's not just as easy as figuring out what do I need. You need to figure out how do I get to that? How am I able to accomplish this? And all this can only be done by stopping and considering before you play the first card. Okay, so let's look at page 156. It's talking about entries here. And if you look at the first example, the bottom of page 156, it's pointing out that in the dummy of this example, you have an ace, an 8, and a 3. And in the declarer hand, a 7, a 4, and a 2. And the question is, are there entries in the dummy hand? And the answer is, in this suit, yes, because you've got the ace. The ace is a great entry to the dummy hand. So yes, you have an entry there, the ace. Let's look at the next one, though. Here you have the ace, king, queen in dummy. That should be 3 winning tricks, but you have none of that suit in your hand. So you have no winning entries over there in that suit unless you can get over there somehow. And you're going to have to get over there through some other entry because these are not entries. If you can't lead a card to it to make it a winner, then those aren't entries. You're going to have to use some other suit as an entry to cash those 3 good tricks. Let's look at the next one. Here you have nothing in dummy and you have 2 little ones in declare. And as far as entries goes, these are really more useful than the ace, king, queen being over there, because here you can trump. If you don't have anything in dummy and you've got 2 in your hand, you can trump to get over there. So those do provide an entry for you to get over to the dummy hand, to cash that ace, king, queen that are sitting over there. So those that when you have small ones and void in the dummy hand, that does get you entries to the dummy hand. Let's look at the next one down. Here you have the ace, king, 4 in the declarer hand and the queen, 5, 3 in the dummy hand. And yes, this does give you an entry. That queen is an entry because you know where the ace and king are. So you can just lead to the queen and be sure that you're going to win that trick, assuming there's not trumping or some other problem that comes up. Look at the next one down, and it's pointing out here, even a relatively low card can sometimes be an entry. Here in the declarer hand, you have the ace, king, queen, jack, 10, 4, and you've got the 9 and the 2 on the other side. So you can lead the 4 over to the 9. That is a high card. Through promotion, ace, king, queen, jack, 10, that is a high card now. The 9 is a high card. And it would be an entry over to the dummy if you needed the entry to the dummy. One thing you would need to remember, though, is if you play the ace and then the king, you now have no entries to dummy. So if this were a trump suit, it looks like a trump suit. This were a trump suit, you need to be careful not to pull that first before you took the entry over there that you needed. If this is no trump or something, you need to worry about the same thing. This is also an illustration of ours taking the high card from the short side first, so you don't get stuck in the wrong side. So you would need to lead the 4 over to the 9. Now let's look at the next one. Here you've got all the high cards you could possibly want, the ace, king, queen, jack, 10, but you've got the ace in the declarer's hand and the king, queen, jack, 10 in the dummy hand. In this suit, you have no entry to the board. You have no entry to the dummy hand. You may find it somewhere else. And if you do find it somewhere else, what would you need to be careful to do first? You would need to cash that ace first. Because if you go over to the dummy hand some other way, hoping to take the king, queen, jack, 10, notice that as soon as you take one of them, the ace wins and you're stuck again in the wrong hand. So the important thing here is you have no entries in this hand. You would have to find an entry in this suit. You would have to find an entry somewhere else, number 1. And number 2, you would have to play the ace before you use the entry to go over there and play the rest of the high tricks. Look at the last one on the page. In the dummy hand, you have the ace, 4, 2. In the declarer hand, you have the king and the 5. This gives you an entry on both sides. This is very useful to have because it gives you a choice of where to take a trick. Because it's important that you be able to take tricks in all suits. Well, if you can take a trick on either side, you can make a determination. You know what? I think I'd rather take the trick on the declarer side because maybe I have fewer entries or more entries on the declarer side, and I want to hold on to the ace and the dummy side because I don't have as many entries over there. Usually the transportation problem is with dummy because usually dummy has fewer cards than declare, fewer high card points, fewer entries than declarer does. But, this doesn't have to always be the case, but that's the usual situation. Over on the next page, it talks about creating an entry. Now, these first things we were talking about is whether or not you have an entry. Do you have an entry over there? Well, if we don't have an entry, we need to figure out a way to create an entry. If we need to get to the board to do something, we need to figure out a way to create an entry. And you can create an entry using the things we already know about, the tools we know about, promotion, length, finessing. All of these will work. Let's look at the first example. Once you play one of these, you have an entry to the board because either they let you win the king or queen because the ace is on the wrong side, or they take the ace, in which case your king is good because you played the queen. So whichever way you look at it, you will have an entry there through promotion. Once the ace is played, you have a good trick. So you do have an entry there. Let's look at the next one. This is a possible entry, because it depends on finessing. So we want to lead a low card towards the king and hope that the king wins. Now, as we've discussed, we know that's a 50-50 proposition. It will work or it won't work. That's it. There's nothing you can do to make it more likely to work or not to work. So we lead the 2 towards the king. If the ace is on the left-hand side, then your king will win. If it's on the right-hand side, your king will lose. If the king wins, now you have an entry to the board. In situations like this, you need to be careful that you are ready to go to the board if it wins. In other words, whatever else you've needed to do has happened already. You've drawn your trumps, you've developed your extra tricks wherever you need to develop them, and now you need to go to the board. Well, if it works and you are able to get to the board, you need to make sure that the board is in the situation to win whatever tricks you were trying to win over there. In other words, don't do this too early if you're doing it to make an entry to the board. Make sure you do your timing correctly. Easier said than done, I know. Let's look at the next one down. Similar example, but this is a little bit different. We do have the ace ourselves. What we're finessing for here is the king. So what we need to do here is lead a low card towards the queen. Remember, in a finesse, we are always leading the low card towards the one we hope will win. We hope the queen will win. The ace is definitely a winner, but what we're trying to do here is develop an entry in dummy. And to do that, we have to have the king on the left side. So we lead a small card towards the queen. If the left-hand opponent has the king, he may play it. If he doesn't play it, you play the queen. If he does play the king, your queen is going to then be good the next time you come around to that. So you've developed an entry into dummy. The last one is a little bit harder to see. The last one, we have 8 cards in the suit. We can play the ace and we can play the king, but then the cards are not going to be high enough for us to still have an entry over there because we're missing the queen, jack, 10, 9. But what we're going to hope here is that through length, we're able to get a final trick, which will give us an entry over to dummy. So we're going to play the ace, we're going to play the king, then we're going to play a little one and let them win. Let them take that trick. And then when we come back, finally, or in the declarer hand, we can lead the final one of these and the final one will also be on the board, and it should win because you've got two little ones there. You need to make sure that the 8 and the 6 are still on the dummy side, which they would be. If you play the ace and the king, you're going to play low. The one you'll be left with is the 8. Now, what else do we need to have true to make this work? Well, we need to have a 3-2 split. We need to have a 3-2 split for this to work. If it's a 4-1 split, it's not going to work. You're going to lose 2 tricks there. And you're hoping just to lose 1 trick and set up 1 trick as an entry to the dummy. So if you get a 4-1 split, it's no good. But the 3-2 split is 70% of the time. So it's a pretty good shot. It's a better shot than a finesse somewhere else. So whenever you have to make a decision about a finesse and about hoping you get a 3-2 split, the hope for the 3-2 split is better odds than going after the finesse, even though kind of intuitively to me it doesn't seem like that. But if you know what the odds are, you know that it is better to assume there's a 3-2 split than to try a 50-50 finesse with nothing else behind it, just like the first one up there where you just are going for a bear king. You know, that's 50-50. This is a lot better chance of getting a 3rd trick in that suit so that you'll have an entry over to dummy. Now, the next part of this, and I'm over on page 158, 159 now, it's talking about preserving your entries when you're playing a suit, because sometimes you need to worry about where we're going to wind up as we're playing a good suit. If you look at the first example over on page 159, we've got the ace, queen, 9, 8, opposite the king, jack, 6, 3. Well, in that case, it doesn't make any difference what order you play these in. You've got 4 tricks in that suit. You can't get any more. You can't get any less. Well, you could get less if you played the king or the jack under the ace or queen, but we're not going to do that now. And at this point in our bridge career, we're not going to do that. So this is a nice suit to have. You've got entries on both sides. You can use them. You're going to have every trick in that suit. Very valuable. But contrast that with the next example. The next example, we have the same high cards. We don't have as many high cards, but we have the same high cards. But it is imperative that we take the queen first, then take the rest of them. If we do not take the queen first, we will lose the queen. So if you cash the ace, and then you cash the king, the queen will fall. You'll cash the jack, and your 2 will lose. So in order to play this correctly, you need to lead the 2 towards the queen, or play the queen first if you're over there, and then play the 3 to get back to the ace, king, jack. The same example is true next. Here you're missing the ace, and you're going to have to lose 1 anyway. But the same example, same idea applies, that you need to get rid of the high card on the short side first. You need to play it first so you don't get stuck over on that side. You're going to play it first, and probably you're going to lose to the ace, or they may hold up on the ace. If you play the 3 to the jack and then play the 2 going back to the king, keep playing until they've played the ace, then the rest of the tricks are going to be good in that suit. Okay, let's look at the final one. Even though this looks a lot like the one we talked about earlier, where you're going to play the ace and the king and then lose 1, you're not going to have any entries when you do that, because look at this. The same example, you've got the ace, king, 8, 6, 3, and the 5, 4, 2 on the other side. But because these are split differently, they're not 4, 4, these are split 5, 3. If you assume a 3-2 split, you're not going to have an entry. And definitely with a 4-1, you're not going to have an entry, because you'll play the ace, you'll play the king, and you'll lose 1 because they are entitled to take a trick. But then you don't have an entry to the dummy, because you have used up all the tricks, all the cards that you have in declare. So even though this looks like a good suit and it looks similar to the one we did before, it's not going to create an entry in dummy for you, because your cards are split badly. They're split well for taking extra tricks, but if you can't get over there to take them, then that's not going to do you any good. Okay, now on page 160, we have a couple of examples of hands that are using these. The first one is on page 160. It is a 3 no trump contract. The opening lead is the Queen of Clubs. The dummy hand is the north hand. The declarer hand is the south hand. So we are in a 3 no trump contract. Let's make a plan for just a minute. First of all, well, what's the situation? We need 9 tricks. So let's see how many we can count. And this is no trump, so we're going to count winners. So let's look at the spade trick. We've got 2 spade tricks, the ace and the king. In hearts, we've just got 1 trick, the ace. In diamonds, we've got no tricks, no sure tricks. Although we can look and see, well, we've got a lot of high cards here, so there's possibly ways to develop that. And then in the last one, we have 2. So that's 2 in spades, 1 in hearts, 2 in clubs. That's 5 winners. That's not nearly enough. We need 9 winners. But we can figure that once we knock out the ace of diamonds, all the rest of our diamonds are going to be good. So our plan needs to be, they play the Queen of Clubs, and right off the bat, we need to decide, where do we need to keep an entry? We can take that either on the dummy side or the declarer side. We have an ace on one side and a king on the other side. But we have no other entries to the dummy hand other than the ace of clubs. And we've got that long suit that we would like to set up over on the dummy side. And we've only got 2 cards in that suit on the declarer side. So we're going to quickly run out of ways to get to the winning trick over on that side to cash the rest of those diamonds once we set them up. So for that reason, we need to not take it on the dummy side. We need to take it with the king of clubs. Leave the ace over there. We're going to need that in a few minutes. So leave the ace over there. So you take it with the king, and then what are you going to lead? Well, you're going to start working on diamonds, and we're going to use our rule of playing the high card from the short side first. So we're going to lead the Queen of Diamonds after we win with the King of Clubs. We'll lead the Queen of Diamonds, and they'll probably hold up because it's a good defensive idea to hold up. Don't take your aces right off the bat, especially when you can see that we're trying to set them up over there. So you'll lead the Queen, they'll let you win it. You'll lead a small one, they'll let you win it again. They'll lead you, then you'll lead another small one, and at this point they're going to take the ace probably. But even if they wait 4 times to take the ace, that's fine because you still have the ace of clubs to get over there. You see that? And if they lead a club, fine, you take it with the ace, and then you cash the rest of your diamonds so that you'll get 4 tricks out of diamonds. They'll only get the ace of diamonds. And if they lead anything else, if they try to switch to spades or hearts, you've got winning tricks there, and you still have the ace of clubs over in dummy. So that's how to play that hand. That is the plan that you should make before you even play to the first trick, before you play the ace, the king of clubs, before you play something off the board. Because if you don't make the plan, you may just think, oh, well, go ahead and take it with the ace. If you take that ruins the whole thing. If you take it with the ace, you cannot make this contract. So you have to make a plan if you want to have a chance of making the contract. Let's look at the next one. This is another 3 no trump contract. The Queen of Spades is the leading. So when the dummy comes down and we take a look at it, since it's a 3 no trump contract, we need 9 tricks, and we need to count our winners. So let's look at spades. We've got 2 winners. Hearts, we've got 3 winners, the ace, king, queen. Diamonds, we only have 1 winner. And in clubs, we have 2 winners. So that's 5, 6, 7, 8. We've got 8 winners. We just need to find a way to get 1 more winner. Well, I'm looking back. There's no good chance to get an extra winner in spades. In hearts, we've already got 3 winners. Diamonds, I only have 7 cards in the diamond suit, and I only have the ace. So that's not too much of a possibility. But look at the club suit. I have 8 clubs. If I play the ace and I play the king, and then I give up a spade, a club, I should have 2 more winning clubs. But in order to do that, I need to keep an entry to the ace and king. After I've played the ace and king and let them win one, then I still need to have a way to get back over there. So I have to hold on to the ace of hearts. I have to play after they have played, they've led the queen. I'm going to win with the ace of spades or the king of spades. And then I'm going to start working on the clubs. So I'm going to play a small club, take the ace, take the king, and then play a small one and let them take their trick that they need to take. Then whatever they lead back, I can take it and lead another club. And as long as clubs are split 3-2, 70% chance they're split 3-2, I'm going to win those last 2 clubs. And that'll give me actually an over trick because I was only 1 short. There's another example of a hand on page 162, and this is using finesses. And the important thing to know here is that when you're finessing, sometimes you have to be able to get back in order to finesse. So let's look at this hand. This is a 4-heart contract. The queen of diamonds is led. And so when the dummy comes down, we count our losers because this is a suit contract. So we have a loser in spades. We have no losers in hearts. We have 2 losers in diamonds because we can't count on that king. And we look at it from the point of view of the declarer. So we've got 2 losers there. And then we've got 1 loser in the ace, queen, jack. We need to probably lose to the king or maybe lose to the king. So we need to count that as a loser. Well, that gives us 1 in spades, 2 in diamonds, 1 in clubs. That's 4. We can only afford 3 losers. So let's see, where can we get rid of one of the losers? Well, it doesn't look too likely that we could get rid of that loser in spades, nor can we get rid of the loser that we have in diamonds. And actually, we've got 2 losers in diamonds. We possibly could finesse and get the king, make the king win, in which case we would only have 1 loser there. But that's a 50-50 proposition. Wonder if we can do better than that. The last one is the ace, queen, jack. Well, when we have several face cards, we have more chance of making one of them work than we do of just having a bare king win a finesse. We're still going to have to finesse, still 50-50, but when we finesse, we may be able to get all 3 of these clubs, whereas with they're pretty sure we're going to have to lose at least 1, if not 2, of the diamonds. So after they lead the queen of diamonds, you'll play the king, they'll play the ace, and that's the end of worrying about the diamonds anyway. Then they'll lead whatever they lead back. You will then draw your trump. Draw your trump in. But you need to have 2 entries to the board because you need to lead back to the hand twice, to finesse twice for the king of clubs. If the king of clubs is in the right hand, opponent is in the east, then we're going to make all of our clubs good. But in order to make all of our clubs good, we need to go back to dummy and finesse again. So we'll lead the 2 of clubs and finesse. They don't play the king, so our jack wins. Oh boy, the king is in the right place. So we need to go back to dummy. So we can go back to dummy with the ace of spades and lead again. Then we need to go back to dummy and lead a 3rd time. Lead a 3rd time. And in that case, the only other winner we would have would be the 10 of hearts. Luckily, when you drew your trump, you only had to draw it 2 times. Even if you'd drawn 3 times, you could still have the 10 of hearts over there. So you need to realize that you need 2 entries over there. One of them is the ace of diamonds. The other is the 10 of hearts. Okay, so this is how we watch out for our entries. We try to find ways to develop entries when we need to develop them in a hand. Let's look over now at our next chapter, chapter 6. We watched out for entries. Now let's watch out for the opponents. And there's two ideas here in this chapter. One of them is the idea of the hold up plays. You don't just take your tricks early. You hold up sometimes and wait to see whether or not you're, so you can protect yourself. You don't take your tricks right off the bat. You wait and let them take whatever they're entitled to. Then your tricks will be good. That's one, the hold up play. The second one is the idea of the dangerous opponent. If one of the opponents has set up a suit in their hand, you want to, if you can, find a way for them to get back in the lead. And so you have to watch out for that opponent. The hold up play, let's look at an example on page 198. I'm on page 198 now in your course book. This is a 3 no trump contract. The opening lead is the 4 of hearts. And so let's look at the two hands. We need to take 9 tricks. We need to count our winners. Well, we've got 2 winners in spades. We've got 1 winner in hearts. We've got 4 winners in diamonds once we get rid of the ace of diamonds. And we've got 4 winners in clubs. So we've got 2, 1 is 3, 4 is 7, and then we need to get rid of the ace of diamonds, and then we've got a lot of extra winners in diamonds. But the problem is they're leading hearts, right? They're leading hearts, and we only have 1 winner in hearts. If we take that heart ace at the beginning and then go to work on our diamonds, what's going to happen? They're going to get the rest of those hearts. And those hearts are split 5, 3, which is the most common split. If there are 5 hearts over there, we cannot afford to lose all of those hearts, plus lose the ace of diamonds, which we have to lose. So what we have to do is hold up, not play the ace on the first trick. So you're going to let their king win. Then they're going to play a low. Oh, wait, they've led the 4. Oh, excuse me, they've led the 4 of hearts. So you're going to let the queen win. You're not going to play your ace. They're going to play the 4. You're going to hold on to your ace. The queen is going to win. They're going to lead another heart back. The east is going to, after he wins with the queen, is going to lead another heart back because that's his partner's suit. Return your partner's lead. So he's going to do that. He returns his lead and he wins with the king. You still don't play the ace. When he plays the jack, now you have to play your ace. And now he's got 2 more tricks left in hearts. So you have to hope that he doesn't get back in the lead. So you now play your hearts and you play your ace of hearts and you lead the diamond. And you keep your fingers crossed that the ace of diamonds is in the east person's hand, not the west. The ace of diamonds is in the east, you're okay, because east does not have any more hearts to lead back to his partner. We held up our ace long enough that he ran out of his hearts. So he's going to win in his hand, but there's nothing he can lead back that will hurt you now. So now he's played the ace of diamonds. All the rest of your diamonds are good. You still have the ace, king of spades, and the ace, king, queen, jack, king, ace, king, queen, jack of clubs. So you've got plenty of tricks now. But it all involves not playing that ace of hearts until you have to play the ace of hearts. There is a rule. There are a lot of rules in bridge, the rules of 11, rules of 19, rules of 20. There's a lot of rules, and not all of them are really good rules, but this rule I'm going to tell you about now is a good rule if you can remember when to use it, okay? It's the rule of 7. And the rule of 7 would have worked really well on this hand. The rule of 7 is telling you when to play an ace in a no trump contract like this, where you just have the bare ace. You have to decide when is the right time to play it. Do I wait 1 round, 2 rounds, 3 rounds? How do I know how long to wait? So the rule of seven says you take the number of cards that you have in the suit. And in this case, if we look at our heart holding, we have 5 cards in the suit. And we take the number of cards and subtract it from 7. And that tells you how many times that you should hold up. How many times you should hold up. And in this case, it tells us you should hold up 2 times. And that's exactly what we held up, 2. We let them win 1, then we let them win another one, then we had to play our ace, but that was the time it told us to play it anyway. So the rule of 7 says, the rule of 7 is for when you should play a bare ace that you have, how long you should hold up. You take the number of cards you have in the suit. In this case, it's 5. You subtract it from 7. That's the rule of 7. And it tells you to hold up twice. So you'll play the ace the 3rd time around. You'll hold up twice and play it the 3rd time. And that's just a good rule to use. It talks about this over on page 201 in the course book, where it's telling you how long to hold up. And the rule of 7 is a good one to use when you're worrying about the ace. And that's usually the situation, because it's not really, when you have more, you can't really hold up. Then there's one other idea, and that's over, let me find it here. Talks about it over on page 206. Page 206, avoiding the dangerous opponent. The dangerous opponent means one who has a lot of winning tricks in his hand that he's set up. So look at the example on the bottom of page 206. You've got in this suit, the opponents have the king, queen, jack, 10, 9, and all you have is the ace. All you have is the ace. Well, we're going to use the rule of 7 here to decide how long to hold up in the first place, right? And we've got 5. We subtract that from 7. It tells us to hold up 2 times, which is what we're going to need to do anyway, but hold up 2 times. So we're going to go ahead and do that. But once we've done that and won with our ace, he still has 2 winning tricks. That's illustrated on the top of page 207. He still has 2 more tricks that he can win if it gets back to his hand. So you need to try to figure out how to keep it from getting back to his hand. If you have a choice of how to play things so that he will not get in the lead, or if you can finesse a certain way or rough a certain way, that's what you need to do to avoid him getting back in the lead. Now, it's hard to do sometimes, but if you look at page 208, it gives you an example of that. This is a 3 no trump contract. The opening lead is the king of spades. So since it's no trump, we're going to count our winners. We have 1 winner in spades. We've got 3 winners in hearts. We've got 1 winner in diamonds, and we've got 1 winner in clubs. But if you'll look at diamonds and clubs both of them seem like we might be able to take a lot of extra tricks if the finesses work. Okay, so he's going to lead the king of spades, and you see immediately you've got a problem in spades, right? Because you only have 1 way to stop those, and that's the ace. Well, we use the rule of 7, and that says we're going to hold up twice because we've got 5. So he plays the king, we don't win it. He plays the queen, we don't win it. He plays the jack, this time we do lead with the ace. We play the ace. And now we have to decide, well, we would like to win one of either with clubs or diamonds. They're both equal looking suits. They're exactly the same. How do we decide which way to finesse? Well, we have held up in spades long enough that the east person should have no more spades to lead back. So what we're going to want to hope is that the east has one of the finesse. And the way we would want it to be is that we would hope that if the finesse is going to lose, it would lose in the east. Well, look at your diamonds. If you finesse through diamonds and it loses, it's going to lose in the west, right? The king would be, if it loses, the king is in the west. And if the king is in the west, then he's going to win the king and he's going to play those last two spades that he has, taking too many tricks for you to make your contract. So that tells me, okay, I need to finesse through west, hoping that if it loses in the east. So that is how I'm going to decide which suit to finesse. I'm going to finesse the clubs. I'm going to work on the club suit. I'm going to leave the diamond suit alone because if the diamond finesse loses, west will win and west is the dangerous opponent. So that's what you're going to decide to do, finessing clubs. It does lose, but he doesn't have anything in east, doesn't have anything to lead back that's going to make it dangerous for you. Now, this is hard, just talking about this, it's probably a little bit hard to see. So for both of these, particularly in chapter 6, I think the entries were maybe easier for you to see in chapter 5. But in chapter 6, I would really recommend that you read the text along this dangerous opponent and the watching out for the hold up too, letting you know how long you need to hold up. Because those are both pretty important concepts, especially avoiding the dangerous opponent. It's hard to see when you come up against that, but if you read this chapter in particular, it will help you know that. Okay, that's it for our review for yesterday's class. To get ready for next week's class, we are going to look at chapter 7 and 8. We are just going to hit the highlights of those. So if you get a chance to read those two chapters, that would be good to prepare you for that. All right, that's it for today. I will see you all next Saturday.